following podcast is recorded and produced by the Podcast Precinct in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com. The Podcast Precinct. Consistency, creativity, culture.
The Nostalgia Funhouse proudly dedicates all episodes in the loving memory of Connie Chirac. So, Johnny, I've been hearing really great things about this Nostalgia Funhouse. It just brings back so many great memories.
Andrew, the only reason I'm moving in line with you here is that you really vouched for this show. So I'm just going to believe you that this is the show that, I've been wanting, which is just talking about all the fun stuff from our yesteryear and the years before. And I really hate anything meta. So I'm glad that what we're doing right now is not that.
Oh, no, definitely. What is meta? Isn't that Ron Artest's new name?
Well, add World and Peace to it, sure.
Yeah, but this is great. They last year they were tier and play sets and Halloween costumes.
Well, that sounds cool.
They get these weird court recordings from pop culture courts.
Does anybody care about court cases?
These ones are kind of cool. They put Scott Kelvin on trial. Poor old Santa Claus there.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, man. You know what's the best part about this is though? Is I hear they always got a really great sponsor. You can check it out right there.
Make Friday nights family night and step into a land of enchantment. It'll make you feel like a kid again.
Amazing news!
With something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue.
What?
All right, Kermit, something green.
Wow.
Friday, it's the premiere of the Jim Henson Hour.
Hello, welcome to the Nostalgia Funhouse, the most perfect podcast of all time. We never mess up. Never do we, Andrew. I'm Johnny. He's Andrew. The best duo of a podcast called the Nostalgia Funhouse.
I would say.
Yeah. And we're doing something special this month. We are doing the Jim Henson month, Andrew.
Yes. Inspired by the documentary on Disney Plus, and also Johnny's undying love of the Muppets.
Yes. Love the Muppets. We tried to get our buddy Will on here, but he couldn't be here, but he's also a big Muppet guy. In fact, one time we had him name over 50 Muppets, and he was successful.
He's a human, not a Muppet guy.
Yeah. Am I a Muppet or a man? That's a good question. That has been asked before.
It has.
So today's episode, we're just going to talk about Jim Henson, the man himself.
Yes.
Andrew, did you see the documentary?
I did see the documentary, and it kind of sparked me into doing this. It was kind of like watching the Gene Wilder one, where it's kind of a faded thing.
Yeah.
Person, because he did die relatively young, I would say. But then all of a sudden you watch it, and then as you get older, you can respect the genius behind everything.
Yeah, that doc is really good. It really reminded me of the Mr. Rogers documentary, which I also hold in high regard. But yeah, we're going to talk about Jim Henson today. And then for all the other episodes of this month, there'll be something Jim Henson related.
Yeah, it's Top 10 Sesame Street, Dark Crystal, and a Muppet movie, because I figured those were the three big things they kind of hit on.
I think so. I agree. All right. So Jim Henson was born September 24th, 1936 in Greenville, Mississippi. And he would always love television. He wanted to get into television. That was his big thing. He wasn't necessarily for puppets either. He just wanted to be on TV. He was fascinated by it. And by the time he was a freshman at the University of Maryland in 1955, he actually got a biweekly bit on a local NBC show called Sam and Friends, and he would bring his puppets. Kermit is kind of there from the beginning. He's not Kermit yet, but you can definitely see that he's going to be Kermit. And he's made from his mother's green coat, of all things. But he's already a hit with these puppets. They're not called, I don't know when he actually starts naming them Muppets, but with these puppets here, and he actually even gets a local Emmy Award by 1958 doing these things.
Starts out young.
Yeah, and then in 1958 is also when he would start officially the Jim Henson Company, and that's where it really starts getting the ground running here. But what really puts the Muppets on the map are these commercials.
Very violent commercials.
Incredibly violent, where they get shot all the time.
Or beaten with hammers.
Yeah. And the first Muppet who really actually got famous nationally wasn't Kermit. It was Ralph.
I couldn't believe that. Because I'm a big Ralph guy.
Yeah, I'm a big I do like Ralph a lot. I do like, but I'm a big Fozzie Bear guy. And you know, the guy keeps trying to tell jokes, but people would rather hit him with tomatoes. I relate to that so much. But Ralph was doing Purina commercials, Purina dog food, and he was a sidekick on the Jim and Dean show in 1963. So he became like a big deal there for a while.
Selling sausages.
Yes. But all during this time too, Jim does not want to be like pigeonholed into just doing Muppets and puppet stuff, so he would always constantly be trying to do like his own films and stuff like that that had nothing to do with Muppets and puppets. And those are pretty fascinating and definitely, I would say, ahead of his time.
You could see a lot of the ground stuff I noticed of Sesame Street, the way that they would film those little cut short scenes in Sesame Street. You could see
Yes.
that in his movies.
Yes. And in fact, that's how they actually secured him to be on Sesame Street, because originally he was very unsure about it because he felt that if he did Sesame Street, it would definitely cement him as like a children's entertainer type thing. And that's not something that he necessarily wanted with his career. But May 14th, 1969, Sesame Street is born. And we'll talk more about that on a future episode.
Yeah.
But it became one of the
nightclub before Sesame Street or something.
Yeah, he was doing all kinds of things, but he was really tired of doing commercials. I do know that. Like, he got really tired of doing those. And it was also during the time that he met his future wife, and they would have a great relationship, but it kind of fizzled toward the end. But Sesame Street comes out in 1969, and it's a major hit for PBS. I mean, this was a show that, Andrew, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that me and you both watched as little kids.
Yes, I even watched the Canadian version.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it much different?
No, it's kind of like the same Muppet thing. It's just a little bit of different kind of characters. They don't not like what was there was a bear, like a polar bear on there, and then like an aviator.
I love this.
I'll have to try and find something. But I remember because I grew up so close to the Canadian border, and you watched Canadian stuff.
But yeah, I mean, it's such a big show to this day. There's also a really good Sesame Street documentary. I think it's on Max, if I'm thinking right. But one of my all-time favorite shows comes out in 1970, and that's The Muppet Show. And this thing is a hit right off the bat. The Muppet Show, if you've never seen it, you can find it on Disney Plus.
Go watch it now.
First of all, one of the best TV theme songs of all time.
So, Canadian Sesame Street ran from 1972 to 2002, and I have a picture of two of the members of Canadian Sesame Street with red green.
Oh man, I love red green. Okay. But the Muppet Show was a huge hit. It was basically the Muppets putting on a show, and they would each week would have like a different guest star on it, type of thing. Like one of the famous ones is when Star Wars came out and was a huge hit, and Luke Skywalker showed up, that kind of thing. But it was very, very awesome. This is where you get most people get their first real introductions of the main Muppet crew is through this. I mean, you got Kermit, Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Gonzo, and all of them. And what's wild though is he tried for a while to get this show picked up, and nobody would pick it up. And it wasn't until Lord Lou Grade, who was like a TV producer in London, decided, hey, I'll give you some support, and that really helped get the ball rolling for him. But a lot of people didn't want to. There's a lot of shows that were like that, Andrew, that for some reason, a lot of people passed on them, and then like, oh, this is a hit. Well, why did we pass on this show?
There's so many names on here. Like they have to list it on like the Muppet Wikipedia for the fandom. It's
Yeah.
literally in alphabetical order, and you could just because there's just so many. And it's a lot of like 70s. Sylvester Stallone was on the show.
That's amazing.
Don Knotts. I mean, Bob Hope. People love the Muppets. Alice Cooper. Welcome to my nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's okay. He only did it when school was out. So, and when 1979 comes around, and Jim Henson is like, what if we did a movie? What if we did a movie? And what's more fascinating about Henson when it comes to his Muppets is like when he was first getting into it, most of your Muppets is how they're shot on film. It's close up. And he was sort of like, let's bring the camera out a little bit. And that sort of gave these characters more depth. And if you watch, and we'll talk about it later, obviously, in a future episode, if you watch the Muppet movie, he did some pretty innovative stuff with Muppets and puppets. And it would continue to do that throughout his career of just coming up with ways and new, creating new technology, I guess, in order to be able to make these puppets do different things. I mean, I remember being blown away when I saw Kermit riding a bicycle.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Like that is huge. Like, how do you get a puppet or a Muppet to ride a bike?
Yeah,
because they've always just been like waist up, nothing below, kind of like Donald Duck.
Yes.
And it was just the craziest thing. Or, like we said, we'll get into it, of how they filmed, Kermit sitting in a pond, and those aspects of things where he's always trying to get more out of things, even if some people don't like it or don't appreciate it. He was always trying to get more out of every single shot, out of every single scene, and just out of just pushing the envelope of everything.
He was also really good at picking out talent too. I mean, Frank Oz has become such a big name himself, right?
Yoda.
Yeah, literally Yoda himself. But he would surround himself with all these really talented people that he found as he was going out through his career, and really smart, very, very smart. Here's a show I have very fond memories of, because in 1980, Fraggle Rock is born. Were you a Fraggle Rock guy? I was.
A huge Fraggle Rock. Matter of fact, I accidentally just found out, speaking of Fraggle Rock, because you can only get it on Apple TV Plus, and I never canceled my free 7-day subscription, so I get to watch more Fraggle Rock. So that's my only my only bonus there. But yeah, I love Fraggle Rock. The Dozers and everything else. I love, what was his name? Uncle Max, that would go out and he would send a point. Sprocket was huge, because Sprocket, even the way that Sprocket moved, because it was like a normal sized dog. It wasn't like on Sesame Street. This was a normal sized dog, and it moved like, or normal sized dog puppet of a dog, and it just moved 100% fine.
Yeah.
And everything else.
Yeah, I remember being in all of that dog. He's probably my favorite character.
That and the trash pile kind of scared me, even though the trash pile was good, but still, just leaves and stuff kind of creeped me out during fall, when we rake leaves and all of a sudden go outside and be like, is this thing going to talk to me? Like, is it going to give me advice?
Well, Henson wasn't against trying to be a little bit more edgy or scary. I mean, even the Muppet Show itself was definitely well more aimed for adults than kids. I mean, they didn't go around cussing or anything like that, but
I would like to see that.
But speaking of 1982, Labyrinth comes around, and that is a fascinating movie.
Yes. Also, wasn't the Dark Crystal also?
Dark Crystal is also around this time. Dark Crystal is 82. I read this wrong. 86 is Labyrinth. Yeah. So, Dark Crystal and Labyrinth kind of comes out. But what's weird for both of these movies is They were not as big of a hit as you would think they would be. In fact, some people would say that they didn't perform well at all. But they've become like cult classics in a way since then.
See, in my mind, they're big hits. Like,
Oh, mine too. Yeah.
I watched Dark Crystal for the first time in like years, a couple of years ago, and I watched it with my son, and he loved it. He loved how everything was like the movements. There's sometimes where they make fun of things because everything's CGI now.
Yeah.
We're practical effects guys. We just went over this
For sure. Yeah.
in our group chat for the panel discussion, as Johnny was like, if you're not a practical effect, don't be in my Star Wars at one point.
Yes. That is. I am all for that. Yeah. I get really tired of CGI.
But yeah, that was like huge. Lambeth was always big. The way that those it was kind of creepy, but the way that those one creatures removed their heads, but it
Oh, yeah.
looked so seamless, like it was actually happening.
Yeah.
It was. I think you kind of had to have a child's mind when it came to those, in a way.
Yeah, but just like an incredibly creative child's. I mean, he was probably one of our biggest, most creative people, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he to the point where people never ever called his Muppets puppets. They were always called Muppets. I mean, that's a big deal because they were just legit puppets, but nobody ever would call them that. And if you ever really want to see the impact that just like Kermit the Frog has on people, just go watch just videos of how happy people are just talking to Kermit the Frog, and they never once address the person underneath Kermit. They always talk to Kermit.
Yeah. Because that's the character, no matter what, is in that aspect. I mean, even when it came to, we'll probably talk more about it, Sesame Street, my brother and I were very opposite growing up. I was a lot more of a not chaotic. My mother didn't like that. She tried to make it nicer. I was a very adventurous child.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was a little bit more free willed, where my brother was very much set in his ways when it came to things. So we were always, it was always like a Bert and Ernie situation where my
Yeah. Yeah.
very Bert and I was very much Ernie, where I would rather make the joke. And my brother was like, no, we got to do this and we're going to do it this way when we're playing with toys. And I'm like, well, why can't Ninja Turtles be with Transformers and
Yeah.
stuff like that? So that's.
I guess I was like you then, because my Ninja Turtles always wrestled Goldberg. So,
You had to. You got to mix them in somehow.
yeah. But yeah, and I mean, he would also have his hands in a lot of other movies. Famously for me, the first Ninja Turtle movie. Those, I mean, that's just beyond innovative how he got those suits to work, because there's so much involved there with those Ninja Turtle suits. All the puppetry and electronics and stuff that he got to make work. I remember as a kid never once questioning that these were the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, because everything was very lifelike. What is it? That storytellers that I completely forgot about, or the
Oh yeah,
hour, that lion that he had.
yeah,
I would be like, wow, this is a legit thing. I mean, we did the Muppets Christmas Carol, and there were certain things like those fish. I believe the fish thing in that one, they stopped being fountains or something.
oh yeah, yeah.
And even that looked, he just made everything look so good, even though as you got older, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Yes.
Okay. I had no idea there was strings. I don't know if it was my childhood mind or anything until I got older.
Yeah.
But that was always so mesmerizing. Watching a puppet row a boat or
Yes.
on a snowmobile or anything like that. Like, he did not put a limit to what he wanted to do or what he could do. It was always, like I said, push it more, push it more. Let's give these people, let's give them fantasy worlds. Let's give them a fun variety show. Let's take these serious celebrities and mix them in with these crazy characters and see what happens. That one lady, when she was talking about singing Fever with Animal,
Yes.
and she kept on saying that she kept on messing up because every second she wanted to laugh whenever Animal did something. And I think that was such a great thing. And then it just, it was always just so amazing. Like everything he did, like the Muppets were a huge, huge thing. If you saw Jim Henson or Jim Henson Presents on something, I feel growing up, like that was a much watch.
Yes, 100% agree. That I immediately was like, I have to see this. If I saw Jim Henson's name pop up somewhere, then I was all for it. Sadly, in 1990, though, is when he would pass away. He was only 53. He had pneumonia, and it was very unexpected. But I remember as a kid, this was like one of the first celebrity deaths that I remember it actually affected me as a kid because I 100% remember that funeral where Big Bird is singing, and it, like, man, what a send off for this, what a legacy, even because even after that his son and some of the family would continue on, and I mean obviously today it's still the Henson Company is still a major deal. They're still doing Muppet stuff today.
Oh,
You know,
I know who though.
yeah, that's the one thing about the documentary I did want to bring up. It is a Disney Plus produced documentary.
Yeah.
So they make it almost comes off like Henson was very happy to sell it to Disney when I don't think that's the entire story there.
I don't think it was either.
Because there was a time where he was sort of the movies didn't do as well as he had hoped, and they were sort of
Well, didn't he take all that money, like take out loans and everything to buy back his property from the guy in
yes,
London?
yeah, yeah. So he was probably pretty starved for cash at that time. And I truly believe he would not have sold to Disney unless he had to. So,
Like
uh,
so some of the newer stuff, like just I saw that he had his name attached to it that I watched with my kids because he had his just a name of Jim Henson attached to it was Sid the Science Kid, which was like a 3D animated, but he looked everybody looked Muppet like on there. And then Dinosaur Train, which I didn't really like, but my kids watched them because I was like, it once again, it's a Jim Henson, so I was like, it has to be good. It's like a Morgan Freeman movie.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, anytime I see any sort of puppet slash uh, electronic type of character, I immediately assumed that it was either inspired by or had some originality from Jim Henson or
Yeah,
his company. Wasn't the dinosaurs? Wasn't that? Didn't Jim
yeah,
Henson do those? Yeah,
that was Jim Henson as well.
yeah,
I mean, there's just always something fun and always something excited, and definitely as a kid, and like I said, as an adult, you really appreciate the genius behind it, the love, the passion. That this is what I want to do. I'm gonna make I'm gonna make people happy, but I'm gonna also do it my way. I'm not gonna
yes.
try and contort myself to a way that people say I should do this.
What was the? It's very recent because they're still putting out good stuff, in my opinion. What was the recent show where it was all about the band, the Muppet Band,
Oh,
the Electric Mayhem? I can't remember the name of the actual show,
I
but it's
think
the guy from who did the guy who did the Goldbergs did it.
good old Adam F.
Yeah,
Let me look.
yeah, yeah. Look this up because it's incredible. Like it's really. If you have not seen it, I highly, highly recommend it.
I think in a way though, I don't think Disney does enough with the
Which is
Muppets.
weird to say because all the other properties they own, they can't wait to put stuff out from that stuff.
Yeah, which I feel like this is more because they're out there. Anything's out there to push merchandise, but I feel like the Muppets still have a place. Like,
And we didn't even talk about Muppet Babies.
yeah, Muppets Mayhem.
Muppets, yeah, that's it. Yes, highly recommended. It's incredibly good. Just very, very well done. It's a great show and actually won some awards. So
Yeah,
hopefully that's a good sign of more awesome Muppet stuff to come. And I also even think those Muppet movies that came out not too long ago
I
uh, The first one, especially, I thought was very, very good.
The one where they kind of came back.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, I really liked that one, and I like it how I kind of like it when they make the Muppets not fictional characters. I think that was always the cool thing.
yeah.
It's
Like
not,
they're just accepted as part of that world.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
Sesame Street or anything else. Like there's a giant bird that walks down my street.
yeah.
I'm on this
It's not a big
show.
deal because
Yeah,
that's just what happens. Yeah,
I'm on the show where the director is a frog,
yeah.
ping pong eyes, and then there's a very angry pig around, and there's
They
this.
also did, and I've been rewatching it because it only lasted one season, but it was not that old either. It was like a set in the vein of The Office, but it was the Muppets putting on a show.
Yeah, I didn't. I think that was before like I had DVR or anything or started
Yeah,
recording stuff. But I do remember that, and it was kind of like that. It was just them out in like society in a way.
yeah, yeah, and like human beings just interact with them like it's nothing. Like it's like they are accepted as part of that reality, which I agree with you. That's when they work the best for sure. But that show is actually also pretty fun. Kermit in the lore of it, Kermit and Miss Piggy had broken up, and Kermit was dating another Muppet who just happened to also be a pig. Which brings up one of my favorite things that I've ever seen, and that's when two worlds collided. When Kermit showed up on Reading Rainbow,
Ooh, that's a
and
connection. Dun, dun,
but the best part of it is LeVar Burton runs into him at a library, and Kermit happens to be in the pig section of the library.
I oh, it's better than running.
He's got a type, man. Kermit's got a type.
It's better than running into him in the sauna like
Oh,
Doc Rivers
good
did.
God, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I want Doc Rivers to come out and say that's the one part of the whole clip per show that's true. That he would have saunas and LeVar Burton would be there.
he is very heavily. He keeps me. You know what's bad is not to get off subject on this, but it is kind of on subject. Is like when I'm watching that show and I'm starting like, oh, what's on my phone? Or like the chat's going off between us, and I'm like, oh, these guys are more important. Then all of a sudden I see LeVar Burton. I'm like, wait a minute. Put
Yeah,
the phone.
yeah.
LeVar Burton's bad. I also like because they did Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted.
Yes, Muppets Most Wanted is okay, but Muppets is I think is still very good.
Yeah, I definitely like the Muppets one.
I even not to brag, but I even bought the soundtrack for that
Ooh,
when it came
don't
out. Yeah,
worry. This guy bought the 1986 Transformers the movie soundtrack. Oh,
that's how cool we are.
yeah. When you're driving along, you like to listen to Inspector General's Hunger, and You Got the Touch, and also
And
by Stan Bush. And who can forget Weird Al's Dare to Be Stupid?
that's right. That's why that movie rules. But that's in a nutshell, Jim Henson. We do recommend that documentary, despite the fact that Disney Plus sort of does that towards the end about how great they are. But that's kind of to be expected.
It's Ron Howard.
Yeah, Ron Howard is obviously a very talented director. So
go check out what Opie's doing today.
yeah, and he does some really fun stuff with those interviews. Like even this is like sort of like stop motion with them in a way, which I thought was very fun. That sort of felt very Jim Henson-ish to try something different like that.
Did they do Jabba the Hutt?
They had to have, right? Because they did a lot of the Star Wars stuff. And Salacious Crumb. Oh, means a Wookiee was.
I think that's what killed Jabba the Hutt for me is when they started doing CGI.
Oh, you mean you don't like it when Han Solo steps on his tail?
No, we went over this for the Return of the Jedi that I'm so depressed that I finally found a VCR and a cheap copy of the original trilogy on VHS that's not special edition, and the VCR did not work because I bought it at a garage sale. I only paid $5 for it, and it ate the tapes. And I was like, damn it.
Oh, man.
Now I'm never going to be able to see, like, put in a tape and then watch Star Wars.
Yeah. Just give us the theatrical releases is what we want.
They'll never do that. Disney will never do that. And no disrespect to our friend Matt. I'm sick of seeing Hayden Christensen. I want to see Sebastian Shaw at the end.
Yeah, that's because that's how he died. So,
Stop sending those royalties to Hayden Christensen.
I'm all for Hayden Christensen getting work because I think the dude's awesome. But yeah, I'm with you on that. On that certain aspect, I'm with you there.
Yeah. But and that is Jim Henson and how we feel about him. But we are gonna go with his, like we said, his big works of Sesame Street. Then we're gonna go with his first non kind of Muppet where there is no Muppet characters in there in the Dark Crystal. And then finishing up with the Muppet movie for these next 3 episodes. So please stay tuned for those. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts and also Facebook and many other social media outlets. Johnny, you got anything else?
No, just if I'm just questioning now, am I a Muppet or am I a man? I don't know anymore.
That is a good question about you. I'm not going to lie. But with that being said, what may not be nostalgia for you may be nostalgia for some.
Waka waka.